Hello, welcome to Rega Achiever Educational Limited, presenting Huyo Tutor, trusted for brain-friendly and high-impact learning. Today, we'll be continuing from where we stopped in our previous classes, still on cell biology, but this time around, we'll be discussing about transports in cell biology. Transports in cell biology. So, I would say that, what is transport in cell? That should be the question you're asking yourself. What can I say? How can I know? Now, here you are, you're safe. What is transport in cell? Transport in cells means the movement of substances like gases, nutrients, water, and waste into and out of the cell through the cell membrane. Now, this tells you that all cell possesses a cell membrane, and one major function of the cell membrane is to allow substance such as what? Gases, nutrient, water, and waste pass through it, either going into the cell or outside the cell. I won't understand what transport in cell means. Now, why is transport important in cell? Transport in cells is important because cells need to exchange substances with their environment to survive. That is one. Another one again, nutrients, gases, and water must enter the cell, while waste product must leave. That's another importance of what? Of cell transport. 3. Transport ensures homeostasis. This means helps an organism with a stable internal environment. Now, I will say that let's go to types of transport. The types of transport in cells include diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. Now, let's talk about diffusion. Diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. And note that diffusion is passive process. This means that do not require energy. Now, these particles that can be moved from higher concentration to lower concentration can either be liquid or gas, or let me use the word fluid. Examples of diffusion that is common in our everyday life. Number one is perfume. If you notice, when you sprayed your perfume newly, it moved from a region of higher concentration to what? To lower concentration. Sugar dissolving tea, oxygen move into the blood in the lungs. You can see that that's also by process of what? Diffusion. Now, one thing you need to note about diffusion is that it always involves moving from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. And it is passive, meaning requires no energy. I would say that next on our list is diffusions in cells. Now, diffusion in cells, oxygen and carbon dioxide in respiration, that is one. Oxygen and carbon dioxide in respiration is carried out by a process of diffusion in which the oxygen diffuses into the cell and carbon dioxide diffuses out of the cell. Nutrient like glucose entering cells and waste product leaving cells also, all these by process of what? Diffusion. An example of a waste product is carbon dioxide. Take notes. Waste product like carbon dioxide leaves the cell to the external environment and is by process of what? Diffusion. Now, I will say that let's talk about the key features of diffusions. Now, down a concentration gradient does not require energy, that is passive. Only small molecules move freely, like oxygen, carbon dioxide, which is carbon dioxide, and water. Those are the small molecules that are involved in diffusion. Thank you very much. Now, I will say that let's go to factors affecting diffusions. We talked about concentration gradients and temperature. The higher, the faster particle moves. The steeper, the faster it is. So that's it. So we should also take note of these factors that affect what? Diffusion rate. I won't talk about that. The next on our list is factors affecting diffusion. Still on that. Distance can also affect it, which simply means thinner membranes helps in improving fast diffusion. Also surface area. The larger the surface area, the faster the diffusion rate, which simply means the smaller the surface area, the slower the diffusion rate. Now, let's discuss briefly about surface area to volume ratio. Now, one thing you need to know about this is that cell must exchange substances with their environment, and the efficiency in which they absorb these substances into their cells depends on the surface area to volume ratio. Now, surface area to volume ratio in terms of small organisms and large organisms. Now, small organisms have a large surface area to volume ratio, and this makes their diffusion faster. When compared to large organisms have a small surface area to volume ratio, so slower diffusion. So diffusion is slower in large organism. Now, let's talk about diffusion in humans. Now, the part of the human body where diffusion takes place include the alveoli. And now in the alveoli, if you notice, the high amount of oxygen gotten from the environment will diffuse into the alveoli, which then transport them to the red blood cells. Then, and the red blood cells then transport them to the part of the body that needs oxygen. That is one part of the body in which diffusion occurs. Also, another part is the small intestine. Yes, food that is being absorbed in the small intestine is also by the process of diffusion. Also, waste removal in the kidney, also by process of what? Diffusion. Now, you should take note of these important points, because you'll be asked in an exam what type of transport occurs in the small intestine. A, diffusion, could see diffusion, osmosis, active transport. Your answer should be what? Diffusion. And is diffusion passive? Yes, it is passive because it do not require energy. Thank you. Now, diffusion in plants. Now, the major substance that is diffused in plants include carbon dioxide, that's carbon dioxide, oxygen, and water vapor, which diffuse out by process of transpiration. Those are the major substance that diffuses in or out of the cell of a plant. Now, having said that, I need us to understand the concept of diffusion, which I've explained so far, which simply means region of higher concentration to lower concentration, meaning if oxygen is higher in the atmosphere, we have to take it into our body, moving from higher concentration to lower concentration. Thank you very much. Now let's attempt some GCSE questions to see how far we've gone. For more information, contact us at Vega Achiever Educational Limited. Thank you. Now, the first question on our list is, this question is about cell. Question 1. Which diagram shows oxygen moving by diffusion? Now, like I said, oxygen, as we all know, is present in the atmosphere, which was labeled right there in the arrow. You can see it there. And I show the direction of movement. In cell A, oxygen is higher outside the cell and diffuse into the cell which have lower oxygen. In cell B, oxygen is lower inside the cell and diffuse outside the cell which have higher oxygen. And that of C, oxygen is higher inside the cell and lesser outside, and which simply means it's moving from outside the cell to inside the cell. Now, what is diffusion? It is the movement of particle from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. The best that suits that answer, or rather that definition which I said earlier, is the first cell, which shows that oxygen is in higher concentration and is moving to a part of lower concentration within the cell, meaning moving from higher concentration to lower concentration, because naturally on Earth where we are, oxygen is higher in the atmosphere compared to inside our body, which simply means oxygen will then have to move outside to the inside, meaning region of higher concentration to lower concentration, even in other cells, even if it's not human. That's how it is. So, having said that, let's go to the next question. Diffusion is an important process in animal and plants. That's what it's meant by the term diffusion. That is way too easy for all of us to answer. Diffusion is simply the process in which particles move from region of higher concentration to lower concentration. That's all. So let's go to the next question. They said that earthworms are small animals that live in soil. Earthworms have no specialized gas exchange system and absorb oxygen through their skin. What is the name of the process in which oxygen enters the skin cells? This is very simple. I want us to have one mentality that anything that has to do with water is for osmosis, because osmosis is a type of diffusion, and anything that has to do with gases is majorly diffusion. Have that little mindset, then a lot of questions will be very easy for you to answer. Let's assume, let me take your mind from here. The roots of a plant absorb water from the soil by what process? Water. It involves, I will call it osmosis. Then the stomata takes in carbon dioxide by what process? Carbon dioxide is a gas, not a liquid. Then I will say what? Diffusion. So thank you very much for joining us at Vega Achiever Educational Limited. For more information on this topic, contact us at Vega Achiever. Ready to give you full support on it. Thank you.